Amy relied on her bubby and on her data sets, but Mike Merrill relies on his shareholders. This is an astonishing thing, really one of the most novel things I've come across. On January 26, 2008, this man, then at the time 30 years old, a part-time entrepreneur, decided to sell himself, not in the sense of Marina selling herself, but decided to sell himself on the open market. He divided himself into 100,000 shares and set an initial public offering price of $1 a share. Each share would earn a potential return on profits he made outside of his day job. So that's in addition to the day job, as a customer service rep at a small Portland, Oregon software company. Over the next 10 days, 12 of his friends and acquaintances bought 929 shares, and Merrill ended up with a handful of extra cash. He kept the remaining 99.1% of himself, but promised that his shares would be non-voting. So he'd let his new stockholders decide what he should do with his life and who he should date. Michael Merrill.
I went too far. I'm going to start by taking a picture. I apologize, but my girlfriend couldn't be here, so I just wanted to get that out of the way. So I'm going to talk about contractual romance, because I've developed a crowdsourced decision-making engine for romantic management. So I'm a publicly traded person, which I always have to explain because no one else is one. So I took these shares and I had to build a market for it, because obviously the NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange isn't going to list me, so we had to build our own. Shareholders can get on there and set the price that they're willing to bid or ask, and they trade shares among themselves. And then that determines my stock price, just whatever that last share traded was. So just like from a actual company that's traded, I have a immediately sense of sort of what the public thinks I'm worth, how I'm doing. So I started with that $1 a share. I made the slide on June 19th. I was $13.75. I think I'm still right in that range today. So I'm doing pretty well. I think I've probably beaten a lot of other companies from that 2008 mark, if you start from there. So the value of having these shares beyond the price of 13 times your investment is that you get to vote on my life. So where anytime I would normally ask my friends for any sort of advice, I put that up to my shareholders, and they vote times their number of shares. Whatever the outcome is, that's the action that I take. So there's a wide range of things that this encompasses, all of these different kind of projects. I worked on a conceptual narrative for the band Yacht. I produced a television show, started a couple small, not very successful business ideas. And that's kind of the project side of things. And then on the personal side of things, I officiated a wedding, became an ordained minister. My shareholders mandated that I register as a Republican. That was a little strange. And then they also control my romantic life. And so that's what I want to talk about today. It sort of gives a good example of the whole arc and everything that's been happening as I've been doing this. This is shareholder number 7. We had been dating for about 2 years when I started this project in 2008. She was a teacher, and we got along really well, but we did not really last. And partially, one could blame the project a little bit, but I think in all honesty, it was probably more just my focus on the project, you might say, and the lack of focus. I was not sure what I wanted from a romantic relationship. So I took about a year off from dating, and this, by the way, is not what I wanted from a romantic relationship. While I took that year off, I did a lot of reading, spent a lot of time by myself, and I discovered Stafford Beer, who is an amazing, eccentric British theorist. He invented the term cybernetics, but that's a whole tangent. It originally was this idea of the science of effective organization, and specifically how he applied it to management. He got really weird when he got older, but this idea, the science of control, that all these principles of control apply to any complicated system. And so you can have all these things of any complicated system works essentially the same way, kind of under the hood. And he created these crazy diagrams, everything from the nervous system to the way a factory would work to how a car engine would work, any system. This stuff is, tiny, tiny little notes. I created a little bit easier version to understand. And so if you think about this, the sensor, if you think of the sensor as your hand, the stimulus is a hot pan, the controller would be your nervous system, and then your body would repel that and you would let go. That would be a system in this case. This is how I think of all of you. Slides are a little out of whack, but you get the idea here. You have ideas. You present them to various people in your life that you're considering. They give you kind of a general sense of, yes, this is a good idea, no, that's not. And then from that, you kind of figure out what to do, right? We all bounce ideas off each other. You might be deciding where you're going to go on vacation, what color to paint your kitchen, what kind of car to buy. What I've done is I've quantified all that very, very simply. So I just say, I have an idea, I present it to the shareholders, and it's a binary quantifiable answer. Yes, no. Very, very simple. So taking this and taking that idea of this kind of feedback that you get from that very quickly, this sort of a central nervous system of decision making that Stafford Beer talked about, we return to the idea of romantic control. So rather naively, I asked my shareholders, do you want control of my romantic life? And as you might expect, they definitely did. Then I had to decide how to do that. And so I'll show you the little presentation video here. I'm Mike Merrill, and I'm a publicly traded person. Selling shares of myself means that shareholders influence important life decisions. Recently, the shareholders decided to take control of my romantic life. That's right, I'm single. Using the latest in modern technology, we've created a system to give complete control to the shareholders. We call it the Romance Advisory Board, and we think it's really going to change my life. You know that friend of yours that's always dating the wrong person? Don't you just wish they would listen to their friends and date someone that really appreciates them? Well, that's exactly what the Romance Advisory Board does for me. In addition to giving their approval, shareholders can also ask questions like, hey Mike, can you really date someone who drinks blended whiskey? So today we embark on a new chapter in my life, and I hope that you'll join me, either as a shareholder advising my decisions or as a possible candidate for dating. We're all very excited about this project and the wonderful people we'll no doubt be meeting. So with that video, I launched the Romance Advisory Board. And the first thing that I had to make sure was it is not too creepy, because maybe it would seem that way. So we password protected this website, totally separate website, and also used pseudonyms for all the people that I would go on dates with. I would go on a date, I would write up how the date went, my shareholders could ask questions, and then from that, either kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, anonymously, so there was no social pressure, I would get an approval rating on any of the people that I was dating. And it was going pretty well. I was, going back to that kind of Stafford Beer, that was kind of the reason of creating this thing, was the shareholders are now the control mechanism of who I date. I found it really difficult to be that explicit about what I was looking for and how these dates went. So I took a trusted shareholder and would explain things to her. She would ask questions and try to create an objective response. Sometimes she would really focus in on what I thought were strange details, but it worked out. At one point, something interesting happened. One of the people that I was dating bought 50 shares. That meant that not only could she vote, she could also read all of the reports. And 50 shares at that time is kind of a lot. And it was interesting because she told me that she voted herself up and voted everyone else down. And then she rose to the top. Her code name. Her pseudonym was Agassi Dakota. The next thing that I put up was I took a trip, met her parents, met her family, shareholder-approved trip down to California. And then things were going really well, and I wanted to make it official, so to speak. So should this person be my official girlfriend? 91% approval. Fantastic. But what does that mean for a publicly traded person? That means a contract. This was a negotiated 7-page general relationship agreement that covered many, many aspects of our lives. We even had a bi-weekly worksheet that we would do to make sure we were on track. Penalties, if there was any violations, it all went into an escrow account. All of that went great. We started interlocking, our social media started overlapping in these times. That's a really good sign. Your friends start seeing each other pop up around there. So 3 months later, we renewed the contract. Slight hitch. She put in Section 15, stock-based compensation. I said that seems fair. She, upon ratification of the contract, she gets 100 shares at the price that the contract is ratified by the shareholders. We thought that was a fair way, whatever the going rate is. And that seemed fine, and it passed. 91%. She's still very, very highly approved. However, the day that it passed, my stock tanked. Right when the contract passed, it sold for 99 cents and then shuffled back up to its regular point. She had sold at a loss in order to up her stake to 150 shares immediately, which I thought was possibly the most romantic gesture anyone has ever done. But I was a little bit worried about how the shareholders would take that, because the shareholders are judging Marika on crashing the market. Is that going to be an attractive quality or a repellent quality? Later, not that long after, we decided to move in together. She passed with 100%. Clearly, the shareholders were pleased. So that was fantastic. Things at this point in March are going very, very well. And then things got a little bit weird. This project got written up in The Atlantic, in Wired magazine, and I got on the Today Show in about a week period. And all of these focused primarily on the relationship aspect of this project. The strange part of that is, of course, internet comments, which are not always the most flattering things that people will say about another human being. And my worry was, in addition to all of this sort of the negative comment troll aspect, was the number of shareholders. This is a month-by-month count of my shareholders starting in January of 2011, obviously spiked when all that media attention happened. So my concern was how many of these people bought shares based on just wanting to fuck with me. And I was especially concerned because we had just finished drafting a 2-year relationship contract. This was kind of a big deal. The shareholders started asking questions. These are new shareholders I didn't have any relationship to before. I had expanded about to like friends of friends and maybe an occasional stranger. But these people didn't know that the previous shareholders had voted this in. They were questioning that. They were also asking questions like, how can we be contractually obligated in your contract? We had a grieving clause. If one of us dies, the other has to wear primarily black for 3 months and refrain from any sexual relations. Should we both die in an accident, that goes on to the shareholders. Seems fair. Seems fair. And then, of course, she starts playing games and switching her vote back and forth, which causes some concern from the shareholders, though later she admits that she was just making me sweat, and it worked. Luckily, it passed. I was really watching those 371 no votes, but the 1,980 yes votes was a clear sign that we should enter this 2-year relationship contract. The lessons that I learned from this was that the model of being publicly traded worked. The barrier to entry of having to pay to get in kept all of that negative attention out. All of those negative people, you're not going to invest a lot of money in something just to screw around with it. The people that came and were interested and wanted to actually make the best version of myself that I can be, which is the stated purpose of the project, they were around to see us as a couple also become the best version of that. She went on to actually do a relationship branding exercise. We did a Hogan personality index, which is like a corporate personality test. Overlapped those images. She made a neon sign that blinks out the letters in her name to reveal the letters in my name, and a photo shoot in which we sort of created versions of our ideal life together. So she's very on board. She's very on message. And the thing that I learned from this is that I can trust the shareholders. That my worry was that with that, would it scale? Would it scale well to this larger thing? Can I trust strangers to control my personal life? And still to this day, so far, I can. And it's not just my romantic life. 3 months ago, they had me quit my 10-year job at Panic Software, where I was happily employed, to do a video game startup with another shareholder, who was a little bit of a shareholder activist and kind of made that happen. I was just yesterday in San Francisco when we presented to a bunch of investors. Things are going pretty well. I would not have been able to do that confidently without that support. So it really has become this feedback loop that I rely on and that I trust. And so the takeaways here are not create a relationship contract. It's not go out and sell shares in yourself. It's the actions that I had to learn through that, which is that I had to be explicit about what I wanted and be honest with the shareholders, and then I had to learn to trust that community that I created and that I enabled. I had to surrender that control to them because that was the promise. I'll trust you, and then you trust me. And then that's pretty much it. I think I'm on time, and I just wanted to take one more photo. I'll send that as a text. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Mike, how many shares outstanding are there in you right now?
Right now, let's see, there's about, I haven't done a recent count, but there's about 6,000 trading on the market, and I'm holding the remainder of those 100,000.
But the float is 6,000?
Yeah, the float's 6,000.
And you've received $6,000?
Well, it's of that initial bid, they were $1 a share, and then every year I do a subsequent auction of shares. Aha. So I don't participate in the market, I do a separate auction once a year. It's
out
a good
of treasury.
Time to get in.
Out
right.
of treasury.
Exactly.
And
There's a lot of follow-up questions. It's a dangerous rabbit hole.
Now, some people might say it's a stunt, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's a little art project or something. On the other hand, you have signed contracts with people.
And I've been doing it since 2008. If it's it's at least a long-term stunt. Right. If it's a stunt.
Is there an actual out, or do you expect to be doing this for
at this
the
point,
next decade?
I would have to make a buyout offer, which I probably can't afford right now. So, yeah, so right now, no. But
and we're talking about a single class of shares?
Yeah, single class.
Everybody's got common, yours is non-voting.
Exactly.
Okay, and place to find these shares and trade these shares?
kmikeam.com.
On your own site?
Yep.
Okay. Have you issued audited reports? Are there quarterlies? Are there annuals?
There hasn't been. Again, the recent expansion of new people has definitely put more of a demand on that. So it's
because,
in the
of course, this is a very romantic bunch, and all they cared about was that. But how about the money?
Right, that's an important part.
Right. So have you managed any revenues outside of your steady job?
Yes, and actually with the steady job now becoming a shareholder project, because they had me quit my job, it's essentially everything is all tied in together.
Well, so there's a real shot at profits here.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Okay, will you let us know when you report your first dividend?
Absolutely.